No, because I'm trying to think of artists before the time she was making interactive work that would involve the viewer, like outside of Brazil.
You know, and I'm not, at that point in time, like in the
'Cause
60s and this, that, and the other, there was performance works and video works, but they were not interactive. They were ephemeral in the sense that they were time-based,
Yeah.
right? They had this rhythm because of the, you know, how time goes. But they were not interactive. They were
But
still,
wouldn't these be considered ephemeral in the same way? Just say, take that piece of canvas that she had the viewer interact with. It's never going to happen the same way twice.
Exactly.
well, yeah, that is
So
totally
that is
ephemeral.
the same. I mean, that's before the time of when people started making ephemeral art that way.
Yeah, because
Oh,
even now,
yes.
the fact that art is interactive and that the viewer is necessary still is a very new and raw idea that we're still working out. That
Yeah.
people are still like not okay with a lot of the times when they go into a gallery.
And yeah, and then I would go as far as saying post 60s, like in the 70s, Blinky Palermo jumps in and starts.
He was actually he died in '77, so he was working,
so it's earlier.
he was working
Yeah.
earlier than that. Born in '43 and then died in '77, so he had an extremely short-lived career, prolific. But what he was dealing with was, you know, not as much interactive, but kind of breaking down what painting is. You know, he was considered a minimalist, a German minimalist painter, but most of his works actually weren't paintings at all. So he was breaking down the painting by creating just color fields of canvas, dyed canvas. So he wasn't even actually using paint. These dyed canvases became objects within the space, and so not only were they reductivist paintings, but they also became minimalist structures at the same time. And I think that one of the most interesting things, well, it more like he's not abstracting an actual image, but he's abstracting painting itself, where he'll take.
Is he using monochromatic?
Monochromatic mostly, but he has this one piece called Blue Disc and Stick, and he actually creates a three-dimensional, full round canvas, blue canvas that's 6 feet tall, and it has a flat blue disc that's painting next to it on the wall. So he's talking about the physical space that painting takes, but then also the illusionistic space that painting, the realm that painting lives in as well. And then just altering that completely and just kind of dissolving those preconceived notions of what painting is. Really smart. And then one of his other, the one that we'll see in Venice, ambient art is what it is. So he takes these color fields, but he also deconstructs the space, or alters the space with these, not so much deconstructed, he alters the space with these paintings. And so no longer, he's giving the audience, he's presenting a painterly approach to his work, but he's also doing it in a way that, the object itself, especially in this piece that we'll see, they're I-beams that just have flat glass panels attached to them. And so, but with the idea with this is that, it takes the viewer beyond the space where the artwork exists. There's a structure that moves beyond the field where you're viewing. So there is interaction that way, where it's not just a picture or a painting that you observe. It takes you beyond that.
And he's using other materials besides just the canvas, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, so wide range of materials.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about his work for sure is he's got this set of philosophical ideals of what an institution is, what material is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then because those are constructs, they're ideals, not actual things.
Yep.
The minute he creates them, or he recognizes that when we try to actually construct these things, the processes we use, materials we use, we deconstruct the ideal right off the bat.
Yeah, well, it's it's being so close to post World War II. It's in response. Still, he was still very aware of that totalitarian idea of that German idealistic existence, and so it's in response to that. So what is the idealistic image? So he just kind of blows that.
Well, that's pretty interesting though, because both Lygia and Blinky,
Mm-hmm.
they both took art to this whole different realm very early on, before, yeah. Even with Lygia's piece that she has in the Venice Biennale, I mean, she's taken the space, she's changed it, you're gonna interact with it differently. It's big, long strings, light across the room. So in a way that's, I'm just getting at the fact that isn't she kind of coming at it from that way too, in a way?
Yeah, I think it's a new way to look at minimalism or abstract art. So there's the abstract sculptors even. So they were still creating these forms in space that you understood as maybe armpit, or just these really reduced relationships that you understand with the body or space. But it seems like what they're doing is they're abstracting those ideas even further to where they're reducing it so much that it becomes, then the person can start relating to it on their own terms.
Yeah, and what I really, really like about Palermo's work is that when he takes the idea of the idea, he takes into account the materials that he's using, and he understands that the fragility of the idea has to be represented in the piece, so he uses glass instead of iron.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was absolutely brilliant.
Instead of an standard non-objective painting almost, and not necessarily non-objective, but that definitely does play into the interaction that the viewer has with the work, instead of just your standard white cube.
As well.
And I would not go as far as calling it non-objective.
Yeah.
Non-representational imagery based on its color field, use of color, use of specific object, like that is, the image becomes slightly more non-objective, but the intent of the actual works is not at all non-objective. It's very much an intrusion of personal experience within a specific location, right? And questioning that experience, or the necessity of the function of that location as well as the work, as well as the viewer.
One of the last pieces he did before he died, he had moved to New York City to start working. Yeah, Blinky, the real Blinky Palermo took him down. No, but he did this project called The People of New York, and so they were paintings, they were color fields, but as the exhibition went on, it started out with a certain number of paintings in the gallery, but then incrementally, throughout the process of the exhibition, pieces would be brought out and then taken away, and so there's this kind of ebb and flow of all of these pictures or all these paintings. And so what he said about this work is that it wasn't about it wasn't about the painting at all. It was about the noise. And so then that becomes the relationship of these pieces next to each other, the noise that they're making next to each other. So he's talking about the noise of New York City as the day progresses and ends. It starts out quiet and then it